Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is a profile on Clarence CKilcrase. As a matter of fact, I think the title is The Radio Career of Clarence CKilcrase. And of course, we have with us to give us that information Mr. Clarence CKilcrase himself. And of course, Clarence, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Haney, and let me say thank you for the invitation.
You know, I think, Clarence, you are well known throughout the community and throughout Tennessee, and indeed many other areas outside of community in Tennessee. And so I think it's a real privilege for us to have you here tonight, this morning, to talk about what we consider to be some very, very important information dealing with not only your radio career, but the kind of information and the light that you might be able to throw on exactly how to do certain things dealing with making success in a viable radio career. And so let's start that off by giving you an opportunity to talk about Clarence CKilcrase, to talk about your background, your education, and some of the things that were important in terms of your career, eventually getting you involved in radio.
Okay, first of all, my intention was not to be in radio. My intention was to become a minister. All through high school, they were calling me Rev, you know, hi, Reverend, you know. And they almost made me a minister. Somehow, during that time, maybe I sidetracked and I met a young man. His name is Ivy Blair. He's gone now, he's died, but he were interested in radio. And after I finished Pearl, and I wanted to go into the American Baptist Theological Seminary, they called it then. That day it was a theological seminary. And I inquired about it because I thought I really wanted to be a minister. But this young man came along, man, said he wanted to be a disc jockey. So he said, would you come on and go to the station with me? So I did, and I'll never forget, I was just finished, almost finished in high school, and went to a station called WSOK. And I went over there, man, I saw all this fascinating equipment, these guys, you know, and he was talking to the disc jockeys about how to get in school and et cetera. So I said, man, this is interesting. So I began to think about it, you know, because my mind really wasn't made up. But after I went to the radio station, I changed my mind and say, I think I want to go take this as make it a career. At that time, there were no schools, radio schools, so there was a school called the Tennessee School of Broadcasting, and they were sending out applications to all the white schools, but not to the black schools. So this young white boy I knew gave me this application, filled the application out, and they refused the application. So I said, man, so, you know, it was sort of setback to me, you know, because at that time I couldn't understand it, you know. But there was a guy named John Richburg who was a known radio personality, which LAC was 50,000 watts, covered the whole United States, you know. And he had just started a radio school. And he gave us a chance to enter his school. And Ivy and I, we finished his school. And during that time, we got a little program, 30 minutes a piece, called Mr. Tune and Mr. Teen. He was Mr. Teen, I was Mr. Tune. So he gave us a break. Now, 30 minutes every Sunday, man, and you're talking about excited. So exciting, and I thought, this will give me a chance. Didn't know how far I would go at that time, you know. But from that day on, man, I began to just move on, and you know, and I thought I went to the top because I got as high as GM, a radio vice president, GM, a radio station, were able to do a lot of things for a lot of people. So that's the first start of my career in radio, yes.
You know, Clarence, I think in terms of dealing with radio, you've already indicated, I think, earlier when you talked about the rejection of your application.
Yes.
But I think what we'd like to do during this period, this segment as well as the next segment, is to talk about some of the problems or some of the challenges that you find in for African Americans and for perhaps other minorities, and not only African Americans, perhaps women and others who would like to also become involved in radio. I mean, what are some of the things that you can say about how to get involved?
Let me say this, and since you mentioned that, you know, at that time we were very limited as far as broadcasting were concerned. There were no blacks in television, very few, and this is when Oprah Winfrey came along, came to the radio station at one time. At that time I was the GM and the vice president of the radio station. A lady called named Drew Smith came to a radio station with Oprah, wanted me to sponsor Oprah. I think it was Miss Fire Prevention. And so at that time I did. I called my owner. It was only $50 and asked him if he would sponsor her. He said no. So I remember taking $50 out of my pocket. Back then, $50 was a lot of money. And I sponsored her in Miss Fire Prevention. However, she was taped by one of the other guys, and they brought the tape to me and said, come over and listen to audition tape. And at that time I had a young lady from TSU had applied for a job, news guy, because I wanted a news person, wanted to be a female, and I had hired her as to become a news reporter. And I heard Oprah, and I said, man, this is something different, something unique, and I hated, my worst job was to tell this young lady that I had changed my mind and was going to hire someone else. And at that time, the FCC was bearing down on TV stations for not hiring blacks. Understand? So the first time they called her, and I said, Oprah, maybe you're not ready. Maybe you should, you know, spend a little bit more time here. But see, and then about 3 months later, they called her back. And see, this TV station that called her killed two birds with one stone because she was black and she was female. But they was very limited, and I remember so well when the FCC came down on all the television stations, said, open your doors, because blacks are very limited. So this is a starting, this is when I first dawned on me about, look, we should excel in broadcasting. And so it began to get better. But it took a pretty good while for it to make this change, you know. Yes.
You know, if you thought about that as a career, and you thought about some kind of formal training that you believe would be important in order to make a person accelerate and go to the top of your career. See, you've had all of these chances to gather all of this information. But in telling a person, I mean, what are some of the characteristics that that individual has to step in front of that microphone?
Let me say this. You know, we went to school for training for this job, for this profession. But there were guys who walked off the street who just had a gift. Had a gift. I recall a young man from Philly, he was going to TSU, called the Seventh Son. This young man came in and told me he had a big radio career in Philly, and you know, he just came down to go to school, and I checked on him, he had never been inside a radio station. I hired this young man. This young man came on and just took the city by storm. These are special people. Now, everybody can't do this, but in today's radio, you've got to have the training. You've got to have the training because there are so many new techniques now. You got to be able to meet the challenge. You know, you don't expect now to start here and just stay here because the opportunities are open everywhere, you know, for the big networks. And you see today how many blacks are on network station, and this should be every young man or female or male dream is to, when you start, go to school, get the right training, so you'll be qualified. We could get away with the high school education at that time, but now it's more than that. So don't think, you know, a lot of people called and said, look, I want to come out and audition for a job. I said, what kind of experience have you had? Well, I haven't had any. Oh, I believe I can play records, but there is much more than just playing records. Much more. So this is the reason why, Dr. Haney, it is so important that our young people prepare themselves because it's a different story. I just wondered, you know, how many kids today, well, there are quite a few who are interested. And just don't think that you can come here and just, I'm going to walk in out the street. And you know, a lot of people say...
Let me hold it here for a minute for our first commercial break. And we'll be back with our audience following this short commercial break. You see what I'm saying?